There are moments in life when words feel like weapons, moments when the presence of certain people makes you want to defend, explain, or justify yourself endlessly, as if proving your worth to them will somehow bring peace. But those people are not seeking peace, nor are they seeking understanding. They are toxic. They thrive on creating storms, they thrive on stirring chaos, and they thrive on pulling you into battles that you never asked to fight. The real test is not whether you can out-argue them, but whether you can rise above them without engaging at all. This is where silence becomes your greatest power. Silence is not an admission of defeat. It is not surrender, it is not weakness. Silence, when chosen with strength, is a declaration of self-control. It says, you cannot control my emotions, you cannot disturb my peace, and you cannot dictate my response. Toxic people want one thing: reaction. They want to see you lose your calm, raise your voice, stumble over your explanations. They want to see you rattled because it validates their ability to shake you. But when you remain silent, when you refuse to give them the reaction they crave, you starve their power at the root. Think of silence like a shield. Every time someone throws an insult, every time someone tries to provoke you, every time they try to drag you into their negativity, your silence blocks the blow. They expect a fight, they expect a defense, but what they meet instead is calmness so unshakable that it leaves them powerless. This is the strength of silence. It doesn't just protect your energy, it disarms theirs. Silence is also a mirror. When you don't respond to toxicity, the other person is left with nothing but themselves. Your quietness forces them to face their own words, their own bitterness, their own insecurities. Because what happens when you argue with someone toxic? The conversation is never about finding truth. It's about them proving they're right, no matter what. But when you don't play the game, when you remove yourself from the cycle, they are forced to wrestle with their own emptiness. And that is something they cannot stand. Many people confuse silence with passivity. They believe that if you do not fight back, you are weak, you are timid, you are powerless. But real strength is not in loudness, it is in discipline. Anyone can shout, anyone can react, anyone can throw back the same fire that was thrown at them. But it takes a truly strong person to sit in the storm, remain composed, and not allow someone else's chaos to enter their spirit. Silence is not the absence of a voice. It is the presence of control. It is saying, I choose my battles and you are not worth one. There will always be people who misunderstand silence. They will think you have nothing to say. They will think you are afraid, but you know the truth. Silence is not emptiness, it is fullness. It is full of self-respect, full of dignity, and full of the wisdom to know that not every battle deserves a response. Some words are so toxic that answering them only poisons you. Silence is the way you refuse to drink from that cup. Silence is also a form of teaching. When you do not give toxic people the fight they crave, you show others how to handle negativity with grace. You set a silent example that strength does not always roar. It sometimes whispers. Imagine being in a room where someone attacks your character, spreads lies, or mocks you, and instead of defending yourself, you simply smile, hold your head high, and stay calm. That moment is more powerful than any words you could have spoken, because people remember calmness in the face of disrespect. They remember dignity when dignity was not given. In life, silence can also become the loudest answer. Think about it when someone mistreats you and you refuse to engage. Your silence says, I do not need your approval. I do not need your validation. I am enough without your acknowledgement. Toxic people cannot stand this, because their only power is in making you doubt yourself. Your silence denies them access to your self-worth. It tells them that your value is non-negotiable. It tells them that you are grounded in who you are, regardless of their opinion, and that kind of confidence shakes the very foundation of their control. It's important to understand that silence doesn't mean ignoring everything forever. It doesn't mean letting people walk over you. It doesn't mean pretending that hurtful words don't sting. Silence is not about denial, it's about discernment. It's about knowing when to speak and when to preserve your energy. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all, because your time and energy are too precious to waste on those who will never listen, never understand, and never change. There will be moments when silence feels difficult, when your heart burns to respond, when your pride pushes you to prove your point, when your ego wants to show that you are right, but strength lies in resisting that impulse. Strength lies in realizing that proving yourself to toxic people is a trap you will never win. They are not seeking truth, they are seeking to wear you down, and every time you engage, you step onto their battlefield. Silence is how you refuse to even enter. There is a quiet dignity in silence. It says you know your worth. It says you are not desperate for validation. It says your identity is not dependent on convincing others of your value. When you stay silent, you protect your mental clarity. You keep your emotions intact. You refuse to carry the baggage of someone else's bitterness. You rise above, and rising above is always stronger than dragging yourself into the mud to wrestle with someone who enjoys the dirt. Some of the greatest victories in life are not won by arguing louder, but by remaining silent longer. Silence allows you to conserve your strength for the battles that truly matter, your goals, your dreams, your peace of mind, your growth. Toxic people will always try to pull you into distraction, but silence keeps you focused on what truly deserves your energy. It says, I will not waste myself on what diminishes me. I will invest myself in what elevates me. Over time, silence builds an invisible shield around you. People begin to notice that you do not entertain drama, you do not react to gossip, you do not waste words on those who only wish to hurt you. This reputation becomes its own form of respect. Toxic people learn they cannot provoke you, and others learn that your calmness is not to be mistaken for weakness. It is the mark of someone who knows who they are, and let us not forget, silence can be healing. Every time you choose silence instead of reaction, you give yourself space. Space to breathe, space to think, space to rise above the noise. You realize that you do not need to carry every opinion that is thrown at you. You realize that not everything deserves space in your heart. You realize that peace is built not just by removing toxic people from your life, but by refusing to let them occupy your mind. Silence is the doorway to that peace. When you walk in silence, you discover something powerful. You do not need to fight every battle to win. Sometimes walking away is the victory. Sometimes not responding is the strength. Sometimes silence is the ultimate proof that you respect yourself too much to let anyone pull you down. Because true self-respect is not about proving who you are to others. It is about knowing who you are to yourself. And once you know that, silence will no longer feel like holding back. It will feel like standing tall. It will feel like freedom. It will feel like strength. There comes a time in every person's life when they realize that peace is not something that is found in the world around them. It is something they create, something they protect, something they guard as fiercely as a priceless treasure. Yet, too many people hand over their peace to others without even realizing it. They say yes when they want to say no. They let people cross their limits. They stay silent when they should have spoken. And then they wonder why they feel so drained, so empty, so disrespected. The truth is simple. Peace cannot exist without boundaries, and boundaries are not walls to shut people out. They are the doors and windows through which only respect, love, and kindness are allowed to enter. Boundaries are the ultimate expression of self-respect. They tell the world, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, this is what I will allow, and what I will never tolerate. And when you live with clear boundaries, you stop being at the mercy of toxic people who thrive on your willingness to bend, to break, to compromise your values just to keep the peace. Real peace does not come from avoiding conflict. It comes from building a life where your soul is safe. Boundaries create that safety. The biggest misconception about boundaries is that they are selfish. People will tell you that you're being cold, that you're being distant, that you've changed, that you're difficult. But the truth is, boundaries are not about shutting others out. They are about keeping yourself whole. When you say no to what drains you, you are saying yes to your own well-being. When you draw a line and make it clear that disrespect is not welcome, you are not pushing people away. You are protecting the space where your dignity lives. Boundaries are not selfish. They are essential acts of survival in a world where far too many people will take advantage if you let them. The absence of boundaries is what gives toxic people their power. They test you with small things at first. An offhand insult, a manipulative request, a demand that costs you a little more than you want to give. And if you let it slide, they push further. Every time you ignore the red flags, every time you silence your discomfort, every time you give in for the sake of harmony, you teach them that your peace is negotiable. And once they know it is negotiable, they will take more and more until there is nothing left of you but exhaustion and resentment. But the moment you draw a clear boundary, the moment you say, no, this is where it ends, you take back control of your life. Boundaries also reveal who truly values you. The people who respect your limits are the ones who care about your well-being. The ones who push, guilt, trip, manipulate, or become angry when you enforce a boundary are the ones who only cared about their convenience. It's a painful truth, but boundaries expose the reality of relationships. They show you who is with you for mutual respect and who is with you for selfish gain. And as painful as it can be, it is better to know the truth than to live in illusions. It takes courage to set boundaries, courage to say no when everyone expects you to say yes, courage to speak up when silence would have been easier, courage to risk being misunderstood, judged, or even rejected because you refuse to compromise your dignity. But that courage is what transforms your life. Every time you stand firm, every time you honor your limits, every time you choose yourself over the comfort of others, you strengthen the foundation of your peace. Boundaries are not easy, but they are necessary, and with practice, they become second nature, an invisible force field that guards your energy without apology. Think of boundaries like the locks on your home. You would never allow strangers to walk in uninvited, to take what they want, to rearrange your space, to leave behind their mess, and then to expect gratitude for it. Yet, without boundaries, that is exactly what happens to your soul. Toxic people enter, they drain your energy, they rearrange your sense of worth, they leave behind chaos, and then they expect you to be thankful for their presence. But with boundaries, you lock the door. You decide who comes in, you decide how long they stay, you decide the terms of their presence, and in doing so, you protect the sacred space of your inner home. Boundaries are also not about building a life of isolation. They are about creating a life of intentional connection. When you have boundaries, the relationships that remain are stronger, healthier, and more fulfilling because they are based on respect, not exploitation. Boundaries weed out those who are there to drain you, and make space for those who are there to uplift you. They filter out the noise so that you can hear the voices that truly matter. They remove the chaos so that you can feel the peace you deserve. Some will test your boundaries, they will push and prod hoping you will cave, they will guilt you with words like, "You've changed," or "You're too sensitive," or "You don't care about me anymore." But remember, boundaries are not about them, they are about you. You do not owe endless explanations. You do not owe apologies for protecting your soul. Your boundaries are valid, even if others do not understand them. Your peace is worth more than their approval. And here is the truth many forget. Boundaries are not punishments. They are not about controlling others, they are about guiding your own life. When you say no, you are not punishing the other person, you are honoring your own limits. When you walk away from toxicity, you are not rejecting the person, you are rejecting the behavior. Boundaries are about clarity. They make it clear where you end and where someone else begins, and that clarity is what allows relationships to be built on mutual respect instead of silent resentment. Without boundaries, resentment festers. You smile when you want to cry. You say yes while your soul screams no. You give and give until you are empty, and then you wonder why you feel unseen and unloved. But the truth is, you taught people how to treat you by refusing to draw the line. The moment you begin setting boundaries, that cycle ends. You begin teaching others a new lesson, that your kindness is not weakness, that your generosity is not endless, that your love is not permission for abuse. Boundaries remind both you and others that your peace is non-negotiable. The beauty of boundaries is that they are not just external, they are internal. Boundaries are not only about saying no to others, they are about saying no to yourself when you are tempted to break your own standards. They are about honoring your own commitments to self, care, to growth, to healing. It is not only others who test your limits, you test them too, every time you are tempted to lower your standards, to overextend yourself, to ignore the signals of burnout. Boundaries are the promises you make to yourself and keep, even when it is difficult. And perhaps the most empowering thing about boundaries is that they shift your perspective from victimhood to empowerment. Without boundaries, you are at the mercy of how others treat you. With boundaries, you become the guardian of your own life. You are no longer waiting for others to respect you. You respect yourself first. And that changes everything. When you respect yourself enough to enforce boundaries, you teach the world how to treat you. People learn from your example. They learn that your time is valuable, that your energy is sacred, that your dignity is unshakable. And slowly, the people who cannot accept that fall away, while the ones who cherish it draw closer. It is true that boundaries will cost you relationships, but what you lose in quantity, you gain in quality. It is better to have a few relationships built on respect than to be surrounded by people who drain you. It is better to be alone in peace than to be crowded in chaos. And with time, the relationships that remain will be deeper, more fulfilling, and more aligned with your true self. Boundaries protect your peace because they place your well-being at the center of your life. They remind you that you cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot serve others if you are constantly depleted. And you cannot thrive in a world where you allow disrespect to go unchecked. Boundaries are your way of saying, I matter, my feelings matter, my energy matters, my peace matters. And once you begin living with that mindset, everything changes. You stop chasing validation. You stop settling for less. You stop tolerating what wounds you. And in doing so, you create a life where peace is not a fleeting moment but a constant foundation. Boundaries are love in action. Love for yourself, love for your well-being, love for the life you are building. They are not the end of connection. They are the beginning of authentic connection. They are not about selfishness. They are about self-preservation. They are not about shutting the world out. They are about letting the right people in. And once you master the art of boundaries, you will realize that protecting your peace is not only your right, it is your responsibility. There is a moment in life when you must decide once and for all that your value does not decrease based on someone else's inability to see it. Too often, people hand their self-worth to others like a fragile object, waiting for approval, waiting for validation, waiting for someone to tell them they are enough. But here is the truth. Your worth is not up for debate. It is not conditional. It is not dependent on the opinions of toxic people. Your worth is non-negotiable. It existed the moment you were born. It exists now. And it will exist regardless of who tries to deny it. Toxic people will always try to make you question yourself. They will point out your flaws, magnify your mistakes, minimize your strengths, and make you feel like you are never quite enough. They do this not because you are lacking, but because they are lacking. Their insecurities demand company. Their emptiness seeks to fill itself by diminishing others. They project their doubts onto you because they cannot carry the weight of their own failures. And if you believe them, if you take their words as truth, you give them power they do not deserve. But when you stand firm and declare to yourself that your worth is not negotiable, you remove that power. The danger of tying your worth to the approval of others is that their opinions are constantly changing. One moment they praise you, the next they criticize you. One day they admire you, the next they envy you. If your sense of value rises and falls with their perception, you will live in constant instability, never knowing peace. But when you root your worth deep within yourself, when you decide that no compliment can inflate you and no insult can diminish you, you become unshakable. You rise above the waves of external validation and plant yourself firmly on the solid ground of self-respect. Your worth is not measured by your achievements. It is not measured by the number of people who like you, applaud you, or agree with you. It is not measured by wealth, status, or recognition. These are fleeting, fragile things that can be lost in an instant. If your sense of value rests on them, then you will always live in fear of losing them. True worth is measured by who you are at your core, the strength of your spirit, the depth of your integrity, the authenticity of your actions, the way you treat others, and the way you treat yourself. And no toxic voice, no matter how loud, can touch that. The greatest tragedy is when people begin to believe the lies of others and shrink themselves to fit into those lies. They start doubting their abilities, lowering their standards, apologizing for their existence, and accepting disrespect as normal. They forget that the opinions of others are not truth. They are simply perspectives shaped by bias, insecurity, or jealousy. Just because someone calls you worthless does not make it so. Just because someone fails to see your light does not mean it isn't shining. The sun doesn't stop glowing because someone closes their eyes. Neither should you. When you know your worth, you stop begging for places at tables that were never built for you. You stop trying to prove yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop chasing love from those who only want to use you. You stop apologizing for existing. Knowing your worth allows you to walk away from what diminishes you and walk toward what honors you. It teaches you that rejection is not a reflection of your value, but a redirection towards something better aligned with your truth. There will be people who are intimidated by your self-respect. They will call you arrogant, selfish, or difficult because you refuse to tolerate their disrespect. But understand this, arrogance is thinking you are better than others. Self-respect is knowing you are not less. The two are not the same. Refusing to negotiate your worth is not arrogance. It is survival. It is saying, I will not allow anyone to decide my value for me. And if people cannot handle that strength, it only reveals how much they relied on your weakness. Your worth is not negotiable because it is not something that can be given or taken. It simply is. It cannot be erased by failure. It cannot be diminished by criticism. It cannot be destroyed by rejection. Even in your weakest moments, even when you stumble, even when you doubt yourself, your worth remains. The challenge is not earning worth. The challenge is remembering it. The world will try to make you forget by distracting you with comparisons, by drowning you in expectations, by surrounding you with voices that tear you down. But when you silence that noise and listen to the quiet truth inside, you will hear it clearly. You have always been enough. To live with the understanding that your worth is non-negotiable is to live free, free from the chains of people pleasing, free from the prison of self-doubt, free from the endless cycle of trying to prove yourself. You no longer need to explain your value to anyone. You no longer need to justify your existence. You no longer need to tolerate what dishonors you. Instead, you live boldly, unapologetically, fully, because you know you are worthy of love, respect, and peace simply by being who you are. This does not mean you stop growing. Knowing your worth does not mean refusing to improve, refusing to learn, or refusing to admit mistakes. True self-worth is not fragile. It is strong enough to hold humility. It is strong enough to face flaws without collapsing. It is strong enough to strive for growth while still knowing you are enough as you are. The difference is that you no longer grow out of desperation for approval. You grow out of a deep respect for yourself and a desire to become the best version of you. Growth becomes a gift you give yourself, not a price you pay to be loved. When you live with the truth that your worth is non-negotiable, you also begin to attract people who see it too. Respect recognizes respect. Value attracts value. The moment you decide that you will no longer settle for less than you deserve, the world begins to shift. Toxic people fall away because they realize they can no longer manipulate you. Healthy people step closer because they are drawn to the strength of someone who knows their own value. Your relationships deepen, your standards rise, and your life aligns with the peace you have always deserved. There will always be voices that try to convince you otherwise. There will always be people who cannot stand to see someone walk confidently in their truth. They will criticize, mock, and spread doubt because they are uncomfortable with the strength they see in you. But let their discomfort be their burden, not yours. Do not shrink to ease their insecurity. Do not dim your light to make them comfortable. Do not negotiate your worth to make them stay. Because anyone who requires you to forget your value in order to keep them in your life does not deserve a place in it. Your worth is your foundation. Without it, you are at the mercy of every opinion, every criticism, every rejection. With it, you are unshakable. You walk into every room with dignity. You face every challenge with courage, and you rise from every fall with resilience. Because you know that nothing, no mistake, no failure, no insult, can take away the truth of your value. You know that your worth is not earned by what you do, it is honored by how you live. And once you embrace that truth fully, once you hold it so deeply that nothing can move it, you will never again allow anyone to negotiate it. Not toxic people, not critics, not even your own doubts, because deep down you will know, without question, that you have always been and will always be enough.